The 13th principle in the science of personal achievement is one of the most important. As you've heard, a positive mental attitude is essential to getting what you want. It's also essential to the practical application of the rest of this philosophy. So let's learn what it is and how you can implement a positive mental attitude, step by step.
At birth, we come over with the equivalent of 2 sealed envelopes. In one of these envelopes is a long list of the benefits and riches that one may receive by the positive use of his mind. And in the other envelope, an equally long list of the penalties he must pay if he neglects to use his mind constructively. Nature abhors idleness and vacuums. Nature sees to it that strength grows out of struggle, out of effort, and she wants man to use his mind and to use it constructively. Nothing constructive and worthy of man's efforts ever has been or ever will be achieved except through that which comes from a positive mental attitude based upon a definite purpose and activated by a burning desire and intensified until the burning desire is elevated to the plane of applied faith. Wishes, well, everyone has a flock of them. Idle curiosity, everyone has a stock of it. Hopes, perhaps half of the people have hopes for as yet unattained things or circumstances. A burning desire, only that small percentage of people who can be called successful ever feel the urge of this. Applied faith, only the leaders attain this degree of mind control which can exist only in a positive mental attitude. Prayer brings positive results only when it is expressed in a positive mental attitude. The most effective prayer is that which is expressed by individuals who have conditioned their minds to habitually think in terms of a positive mental attitude. The vibrations of thought sent out from an individual's mind carry with them to other minds the precise state of mind in which they are released, a fact well known to all master salesmen who have learned how to condition their minds and the minds of their prospect buyers even before seeing them. No one can successfully teach the science of personal achievement while in a negative mental attitude, and no student can profit by it while he's in a negative mental attitude. No lawyer can convince a jury. No clergyman can inspire his parishioners. No speaker can hold and influence his audience without the aid of a positive mental attitude. It has been said that the most successful doctors in all branches of therapy are those who treat their patients with a positive mental attitude. The subconscious mind of an individual can be educated to produce constructive results only when it is given instructions in a positive mental attitude.
A positive mind finds a way things can be done. A negative mind looks for all the ways things can't be done. The secret is to be aware of the dominant operating mode of your mind and change it if necessary. It all depends on controlling your mental attitude.
How can one control mental attitude? Well, there are a good many ways of controlling it. First, by exercising the power of will directed to definite purposes based upon definite motives. If you give yourself a sufficient motive for wanting to attain an objective or do a certain thing, you'll have no trouble in controlling your mental attitude in connection with that one thing. It depends entirely upon your motive, how badly you want to do it. If your motive is not strong, the chances are you'll weaken when opposition comes along. Now, there are 9 basic motives, which I mentioned earlier, and some combination of those motives should be back of everything you start out to do. And the more of those motives that are activated by, the stronger will be your application of the power of faith. Second, by keeping the mind charged with a burning desire for the attainment of definite objectives of a positive nature. Keeping your mind charged at all times. The mind is a peculiar piece of machinery. You know, it's something like a garden spot. I can't think of a better simile than this. It's something like a rich garden spot. You've all perhaps lived at one time or another when there was a garden spot attached to the house or nearby wherein the finest weeds on the farm would grow. Just didn't find weeds like them anywhere else. And also, you didn't have to cultivate the weeds. Wasn't that strange? You did have to cultivate the cabbages and the tomatoes and other things, but the weeds, you didn't have to cultivate them. You didn't even have to plant them. They planted themselves. The mind is like that rich garden spot. If you don't plant in it the things you want to grow out of it, and then keep the things that you don't want out, the things you don't want will take the place, just the same as they do in your garden spot. There's no two ways about it. It'll work that way. You've got to keep your mind so busy doing and thinking about the things you want that it has no time whatsoever to sprout these seeds of weeds that will grow there without your effort and without your want. In other words, keep your mind so busy getting the things you want that it has no time to think about the things you don't want. I think of all of the sins of human beings, the greatest sin is that of idleness, of allowing your mind to be idle, not doing anything at all, not working according to a plan. And next, by association with people who inspire active engagement in positive purposes and refusal to be influenced by negative people. In other words, choosing the right people and avoiding the influences of the wrong people. Now, it may be that you live in a house with some people who are the wrong people. Maybe your relationship to those people is such that you can't very well move out at this present time. Well, there's always something that you can do. You can pull down the mental blinds. I have a set of mental blinds that I can pull down and I don't see anything, even though it's right in front of me. I don't see it. And I have a set of mental ear muffs. I put them on my ears. I don't hear anything. I don't see anything. I don't hear anything. I don't smell anything. I don't taste anything. I don't feel anything that I don't want to feel or taste or hear or see. You can do that. You can be right near somebody that's negative and yet not allow him to have any of that negative attitude rub off on you. How many times have I seen people whose elderly parents lived with them or so close to them that they had to be under their influence at all times? I had an experience of that kind at one time, and I just simply shut out the part of their influence that I didn't want. I didn't allow it to make any impression upon me. They came into contact with me, but they made no impression upon me. If you stick to your guns, determined to do the thing you want to do, no matter how hard the going will be, and you may be sure the going will be hard at first. Stand by, keep on keeping on, and lo and behold, you'll come to the point sooner or later at which nature will say to you, all right, old chap, you're a contrary cuss. I'm spending too much time on you. I'm going to go over here to this softy who can be managed. You go ahead and take what you want. It's cheaper for me to give it to you than it is for me to fight you. Substantially, that's what nature says to you. And next, a profound recognition of the importance of the one prerogative of the Creator, that is, that you possess complete control of the mind at all times, if you'll only exercise that. Now then, how important is mental attitude? Well, judging from what I've just been saying, you'd say it's very important when I tell you that it's the main control over the power of faith. But here are some specific indications of how important mental attitude. First of all, your mental attitude is the major factor which attracts people to you or repels them. Did you ever think about that? Did you ever think that the people that are attracted to you are attracted to you not necessarily on account of what you do, nor on account of what you say, nor on account of what you look like? They're attracted to you on account of what you think. And you don't have to express it orally. You only have to think it in their presence. Of course, you can't just think a good thought in one's presence one time and then bad thoughts the next time. I mean the positive mental attitude that you express all of the time reaches to the people that you come into contact with, that you do business with. And it brings them back to do business with you over and over again, or it repels them, keeps them away, and you wonder what happened to that man. He used to come down here and patronize him. He never comes in here anymore. I didn't disabuse him. I didn't say anything out of the way to him. I treated him nicely. But if you go back to the bottom of it all, you probably would find out that your mental attitude was not right. You were worried about something when you talked to him. You were out of step with somebody, maybe out of step with yourself. It reflects itself in your relationship with people. And next, mental attitude is a major factor in the maintenance of sound health. Had you ever thought about that? It really is. You allow yourself to be worried day in and day out and see how quick you come down with a cold or a flu or something worse. Your body resistance is destroyed by a negative mental attitude. A positive mental attitude supports and feeds that body resistance, the thing that nature has provided in you to keep you well and healthy at all times. I have never yet known a person who was sickly in any nature whatsoever, that you couldn't trace that back very largely to a negative mental attitude. A positive mental attitude is the finest of all therapeutic agencies. All the doctors in the world cannot equal the importance of a positive mental attitude, and all of the better doctors of every school of therapeutics today recognize and make use of the necessity of helping the patient to maintain the right kind of a mental attitude toward the doctor and toward himself. Because you may be sure that the patient that does not have confidence in his doctor is not going to be benefited very much with that doctor, no matter who the doctor is and how much he knows. Cures take place not as a result of what doctors do, but as a result of what doctors get the patient to do himself. And that applies to financial cures just the same as to physical cures. The thing that helps most is not what I would teach you, not what I would say, not what I would write in books. The thing that will help you financially is what you do to yourself. The attitude that you take toward yourself, that you take toward other people, will determine your financial standing beyond any question of doubt. And next, positive mental attitude is perhaps, notice the wording of this, is perhaps the determining factor as to what results you get from prayer. And next, your mental attitude is a determining factor as to whether you find peace of mind or go through life in a state of frustration and misery. Now, that's a determining factor. Your mental attitude. You find peace of mind or you go through life in a state of frustration, according to the extent to which you control and maintain the kind of mental attitude that you want. I don't know whether this impresses you the way it does me or not, but I think the most astounding thing in this whole universe consists in the fact that we know beyond any question of a doubt that the Creator gave man control over but one thing, not two things, but one thing. And that is his mental attitude. And surely the Creator intended that that was to be the most important thing in the world, and it is. Because if you control your mental attitude, you control everything else within the sphere of life that you occupy. You're the dominating factor if you control your own mental attitude. Yet, the majority of people don't make any pretense of trying to control their mental attitude. They get mad at the drop of a hat. If the fellow doesn't drop the hat, they knock it off his head and then get mad. The next mental attitude is the very warp and the woof of all salesmanship, regardless of what you're selling. Yourself, services, merchandise, politics, religion, law, medicine, chiropractic, or whatever you're doing. You're selling something. We're all salesmen. Some of us, albeit, are not very good salesmen. We're very poor ones because we're selling in reverse gear instead of the third gear forward. It's the very warp and the woof of all salesmanship. And unless you condition your mind to make a sale, you'll never make one. Somebody may buy something from you because he happens to need it and he can't get it anywhere else. But you may be sure you didn't have anything to do with making the sale unless you were in the right mental attitude when you were negotiating that sale. It's an important factor in connection with your entire station in life. The job you hold, the pay you receive, and the entire space that you occupy in the world is dependent largely upon the mental attitude that you maintain. And you never can occupy very much space in the world unless that positive attitude is positive at all times. The man with a negative mental attitude occupies some space. He occupies just as little space, however, as people can get him into. They don't go out of their way to make space for him. You know that. Nobody likes a grouch. Nobody likes a man who's got something on his chest he wants to get off. Nobody likes a man who is disgruntled or has a gripe or has mean things to say about other people.
The way you think has a great impact on your attitude, as we've already established. But there's no power in unorganized and unfocused thought. In the 14th principle of our Science of Personal Achievement, we'll study accurate thinking and the difference it can make in using your personal thought power.
First of all, accurate thinking is based on two simple fundamentals.
They are called inductive reasoning and deductive reasoning. Inductive reasoning is used when the necessary facts on which to base your thinking are not available. In this case, you act on hypotheses or what you assume the facts to be. Deductive reasoning is used when you have the facts or what appear to be the facts on which to base your thinking. The next step in accurate thinking is to separate facts from fiction or hearsay evidence and determine whether you are dealing with hypotheses or real facts. When you are sure you have dependable facts on which to base your thinking, you take the second step by separating these facts into two classes. One is important facts and the other is unimportant facts. When you do this, you may be surprised at the overwhelmingly greater number of unimportant facts you deal with daily than there are important facts. At this point, you are almost sure to want to ask the question, what is an important fact, and how can I distinguish it from an unimportant fact? And I shall give you the answer to this very important question by saying that an important fact is any fact which will aid you to any extent whatsoever in attaining the object of your major purpose in life. And all other facts, as far as you are concerned, are unimportant, and you should waste no time with them. After this visit is over, you can employ the next hour to a great benefit to yourself if you will set down on paper a list of all the facts you dealt with yesterday, separating them into two classes, important and unimportant. As a matter of fact, you will make a profound discovery regarding accurate thinking if you follow the habit of daily taking inventory of all the facts that claimed your attention during the day, putting them down on paper in two separate columns, one labeled important facts and the other labeled unimportant facts. Now let us turn our attention to the subject of opinions and see to what extent loose, unsound opinions are mistaken for accurate thinking. To start with, let us recognize the truth that most opinions are without value because they are based on bias, prejudice, intolerance, guesswork, hearsay evidence, and out-and-out ignorance. These are harsh words I'm using, and they represent the source of most of the tragedies of life which people meet with unnecessarily. And I would say that of all the tragedies which cause misery and failure, none is more merciless or destructive than those which grow out of the indifference of people who make no attempt to learn how to think accurately. I shall never forget an experience I had with President Woodrow Wilson while I was working for him during World War I. I asked the president what effect he believed World War I would have on civilization, and his reply was brief, but it was a masterpiece which you should remember as long as you live. "I cannot answer your question," said the president, "because I have no facts on which to base an opinion." If you will remember Woodrow Wilson's 15-word speech every time you are about to express an opinion about anything, the chances are that you will soon get out of the habit of expressing or even having opinions not based on something more substantial than biases, prejudices, and emotional feelings which often serve as fathers to facts. You will learn, if you observe carefully, that the more successful a person is, the less he is inclined to express wild, unjustified opinions about anything. Also, you must have observed already that the drifters who are suffering with frustrations because they recognize they are failures usually have an assortment of opinions on about everything you can imagine. When I hear someone expressing a definite opinion about something of which I have definite reason to believe he knows little or nothing, I think of an experience I had when I stopped a Quaker on the streets of Philadelphia and asked him the time of day. He took out his watch, examined it carefully, and then in a slow, emphatic tone of voice he said, "Well, sir, according to this alleged timepiece, It appears to be approximately 1 minute and 10 seconds past 12 o'clock. I was particularly impressed by the care with which this Quaker identified the source of his information which he was passing on to me. And I often thought afterward how beneficial it would be if all people who express opinions or give out information would take the time to identify the source from which they were able to speak. I cannot influence all people to engage in this sort of safe thinking, but I can suggest that you give it consideration in connection with this visit on the subject of accurate thinking. Now I will give you 7 rules to follow, which, if you memorize them and follow them as a daily habit, may bring you top rating as an accurate thinker. 1, never accept the opinions of other people as being facts until you have learned the source of those opinions and satisfied yourself of their accuracy. 2, remember that free advice, no matter from whom it is received, will bear the closest of examination before it is acted upon as safe. And generally speaking, this sort of advice is worth exactly what it costs. 3, alert yourself immediately when you hear anyone speaking of others in a discourteous or slanderous spirit, because this very fact should put you on notice that what you are hearing is biased, to say the very least about it, and it may be out-and-out misstatement. 4, in asking others for information, do not disclose to them what you wish the information to be, because most people have the bad habit of trying to please under such circumstances. Well-measured, tactful questions can be of great benefit to you in thinking accurately. 5, remember that anything which exists anywhere throughout the universe is capable of proof, and where no such proof is available, it is safer to assume nothing exists. 6, one of the great unexplainable miracles consists in the fact that both truth and falsehood, no matter by what means they may be expressed, carry with them a silent, invisible means of identifying themselves as such. Therefore, remember this truth and begin developing the necessary intuitive faculty to enable you to sense what is false and what is true. 7, follow the habit of asking, how do you know, when anyone makes a statement you cannot identify as true. Follow this habit faithfully, and you will see many persons squirm and turn red in the face when you insist upon a direct reply.
You can perform your own acid test in separating fact from fiction. To begin, never accept anything as fact just because someone says it is.
Scrutinize with unusual care everything you read in newspapers or hear over the radio or television, and form the habit of never accepting any statement as fact merely because you read it or heard it over the radio or television, or heard it expressed by some person. Statements bearing some proportion of fact often are intentionally or carelessly colored to give them the erroneous meaning of fact. Next, scrutinize carefully everything you read in books, regardless of who wrote them, and never accept the works of any writer without asking the following questions and satisfying yourself as to the answers. First, is the writer a recognized authority on the subject he has covered? And second, did the writer have an ulterior or a self-interest motive other than that of imparting accurate information in writing? And third, is the writer a paid propagandist whose profession is that of organizing public opinion? Fourth, has the writer a profit interest or other interest in the subject on which he writes? And fifth, is the writer a person of sound judgment and not a fanatic on the subject on which he writes? Sixth, are there reasonably accessible sources from which the writer's statements may be checked and verified? And if so, be sure to check them. 7, before accepting as fact statements by others, ascertain the motive which prompted the statements. And 8, Ascertain also the writer's reputation for truth and veracity. 9. Scrutinize with unusual care all statements made by people who have strong motives or objectives they desire to attain through their statements, and to be equally careful about accepting as facts the statements of overzealous people who have the habit of allowing their imagination to run wild. 10. Learn to be cautious and to use your own judgment, no matter who is trying to influence you. If a statement does not harmonize with your own reasoning power, if it is out of harmony with your experience, hold it up for further examination. Science is the art of organizing and classifying facts. When you wish to make sure you are dealing with facts, seek scientific sources for their testing wherever possible. Men of science have neither the reason nor the inclination to modify or change facts, nor to misrepresent.
Many men of science recognize the connection between the mind and the body. Next, you'll discover how to forge a beneficial connection between the physical and the mental parts of your being.